The best things in life are homemade. Now, I know people go on and preach about how homemade is always better, and for sure the quality usually is. But for me, the effort or machinery it might take doesn't make it always worth my while. Some things just take far too long or far too much effort, and the difference in quality might not be that different to conveniently getting it from the supermarket for a cheap price. So for me, these are 5 things that I feel like trade up perfect value between ease and convenience of making to dramatically better than anything store-bought. First one is some good old mayonnaise. Honestly, I can't stress this enough, make your own mayonnaise when you can. All you've got to do is grab a jug or any high-sided container and start with cracking in an egg and seasoning with some lemon juice and white wine vinegar. You can adjust from then on with usually some mustard, I like a bit of soy sauce, and then as always hit it with a pinch of salt. Then using a hand blender, start with giving the egg a quick blitz. A food processor works just fine if you don't have a hand blender. I do think you get a bit more control when using a stick blender, but use whatever you've got. Then slowly pour in a neutral oil or a light olive oil even while blending, and eventually you'll get a thick but light, delicious mayo. If you have nothing to blend, you could do this with a whisk, but I fear that is far more effort than what we're going for here, so save yourself the trouble and invest in a blender of some kind if you can. Now, this is one I bring up a lot, but it always amazes me the difference in quality between store-bought mayonnaise and homemade mayonnaise. It literally just takes a few minutes and there's virtually no effort at all, and you get a lighter, more flavorful mayonnaise that is absolutely incredible compared to anything you're going to get in the supermarket. Adjust the seasoning as needed and enjoy mayonnaise as it was intended on your next sandwich, salad, fries. Man, I love mayo. The next ingredient is some pesto. Take a big bunch of basil leaves, and I remove the stalks to get a better texture, but you can keep them in if you want. Then I used to always blanch my basil leaves for pesto as I wanted that vibrant green to help it look fresh, but it does affect the intensity of the flavour quite a bit, so I'd probably say it's better not to now. It does help keep that colour, and it keeps it for longer as well, so you just need to keep that in mind. If you do want to blanch them, drop them in boiling water for literally just a few seconds and then immediately into ice cold water to stop the cooking and then thoroughly dry them before making the pesto. I found a good way to speed things up is to use a food processor. Now, technically you should be using a pestle and mortar for this to make it authentic, but I find the time and effort you save by using a blender makes it so worth it, and the texture is still just as good. I mean, I think technically you can't call it pesto if it's not using a pestle, but someone look that up and let me know. Start by dropping in the basil leaves and then grate in a clove of garlic. Now next, I'm not sure what the traditional nuts are that I used. I see some recipes use cashew nuts, but I've got pine kernels. And I recommend toasting those for a minute beforehand for an extra element, but it's completely optional. And as always, hit it with a pinch of salt and maybe some pepper too. Now give that a quick blitz, and then add in grated Parmesan and a high quality olive oil. I can't pour more oil in this processor as it spins, so I'm doing it in 2 parts, but ideally you can pour it in as it blends for a better mix. Then check for seasoning and enjoy homemade pesto that hits hard compared to the bland mass-produced stuff. Perfect in a pasta, sandwich, and especially with chicken. Number 3 is breadcrumbs, plain and simple. Making them yourself gives a much greater texture and freshness. Okay, I've got a slight caveat with this one. If you're going to be breading something and deep frying it, then these breadcrumbs aren't going to be the best. Something like a panko breadcrumb is definitely going to be worth buying. It's lighter and you get a much crispier outcome from deep frying. These kind of breadcrumbs though are going to be absolutely incredible as a topping for any kind of casserole or mac and cheese or anything like that. And you can do this with most breads. I like to use baguette, and if it's a few days old, even better. Slice it into small pieces and then lay it on a baking sheet, drizzle in oil, and then bake for 10 to 12 minutes until they are golden and crisp. Then you will need a blender or food processor of some sort to turn this into a crumb. You can add some things to boost the flavour. I like to add a lot of Italian herbs and then whiz around until it's a nice fine crumb. I can literally eat these out of my hand, they are so delicious. And you can use them as a topping to boost up any dish where you want that bit of crunch. Next up is mincing your own beef. And although obviously having a mincer is great for this, by the way, if you've got a KitchenAid, definitely worth splashing out on the mincing attachment, you can do this just as easily with a food processor. Anytime I want to use minced beef now, I'm pretty much always making it myself. The stuff from the supermarket is just not for me. It's got so much water content, the colour is all wrong, and when you see what homemade mince looks like, you'll see what I mean. The key is to freeze everything for about 20 minutes to help slice through the meat. You can grab any kind of cheap cut of steak. I combine thin sirloin with ribeye to balance out the fat content, and then I cut into strips to freeze. If you're doing this in a food processor though, it's better to cut them into chunks to just help the blades along. And a handy tip is to freeze the blade as well to stop the meat melting and getting a bit too sticky to mince properly. Then it's simply a case of cutting it up and watching the incredible, deep red, beautiful mince form in front of you. What you can also do is control the leanness by adding a bit of pork and finding the best ratio for you. I like 80-20 beef to pork, although this was a bit more as I messed up my first shot of adding in the pork. Now, when you compare this to the supermarket stuff, it's like a completely different product, and that really comes out in the cooking. Whether it's burgers or cottage pie, trust me, go with homemade. Now, last up, something you see a lot on social media, and with good reason. Chili oil made at home carries infinitely times more flavor than anything ready-made, and it can be such a powerful ingredient that when you know you can make it in just a few minutes, it is well worth doing. Now you could absolutely make the most amazing oil by infusing it for hours with star anise and peppercorn and cinnamon and stuff, and if you've got the time, absolutely go for it. But for this, which just takes a few minutes, you're already getting incredible flavour. It is well worth doing in a pinch, and you create something damn good in a fraction of the time. All it takes is heating up some neutral oil to around 130 degrees, so it's hot enough to infuse but not so hot it burns everything, and then grabbing a bowl and adding red chili flakes. I think Szechuan is the best, plus basically anything you like. I've got paprika to add a different level of heat and a lot of colour, MSG, and as always a pinch of salt. Plus I've grated in a clove of garlic. And give all that a quick mix and slowly pour in the oil and watch the magic happen. Make sure you wait for it to cool down before trying any of it, then you can pour it over noodles or poached eggs for a hell of a kick and a whole lot of flavour. So for all those looking to get into cooking or want to get a bit more flavour into their food, look no further than these 5 ingredients that, with very little effort and hopefully with things you already have in your kitchen, please get a food processor or a blender if you don't, taste so much better than anything ready-made. Now this is not me sitting on my high horse saying that I make everything from scratch all the time. No.
No.
But if you've got the time or you're making something with these ingredients, this is going to raise that quality to the next level. So let's get cooking.